Good evening and welcome. I'm Kelli Richards, CEO of the All Access Group and the host of All Access Radio. As a highly sought-after consultant, super connector, and trusted advisor, I connect innovators and influencers from Silicon Valley with the content creators and storytellers in Hollywood. And as a trusted advisor, I transform the quality of people's lives. I'm also the author of the best-selling ebook, The Magic and Moxie of Apple, An Insider's View. Tonight's guest on the show is Justin Willman. Justin is a magician and comedian known for his multiple appearances on The Tonight Show, Ellen, Conan, and at Midnight. He's performed live at the White House for the First Family. His online videos have racked up over 50 million views, and his debut comedy magic special, Sleight of Mouth, premiered on Comedy Central to rave reviews. For several years, Justin was known to millions of viewers as host of the show Cupcake Wars on the Food Network. And he's currently a consultant and writer for several film and TV productions, including America's Got Talent, The Goldbergs, and Disney's upcoming feature film, Magic Camp. The LA Times calls him a new breed of comic who's making magic cool again for grown-ups, and Playboy has dubbed him the freshest and funniest magician working today. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you. Hi, Kelli.
Great to have you. I want to start off by talking about this notion of a trusted advisor. Some people define it loosely as a mentor. I define it a little bit differently. But who have been some of your mentors along the road that you've traveled, and have you ever mentored others?
Yeah, it's funny. Being a magician, which is, my vocation and my vacation, starting magic as a kid, the idea of mentors and how crucial they are was always very apparent, because magic, I think more so than a lot of other fields of, business or creativity, is one of those things where if you want to learn the real secrets, obviously you need to learn it from the people doing it. So, you can't really become a magician in a vacuum just reading books. So mentors and people who would show you how it's done, why it's done that way, and who would let you tag along and observe the business firsthand was just, the only way to learn. And I had some great mentors coming up in the magic field. And then also eventually when I got into hosting and whatnot, Mark Summers, who was the host of Double Dare and just a fantastic host all around, kind of became my mentor and took me under his wing just to kind of learn the ropes of that biz. So
and Mark did a lot
been
network, right?
Yeah. Mark did, so funny, Mark actually started as a magician himself. So he had a very similar, trajectory to me. So he was kind of clicked, and he kind of, I think, identified with my struggle as well. But magic mentors, I have so many great ones coming up. Harry Monty, Dr. Magic, Randy Kalin. These are all guys in St. Louis who, would spend more time answering dumb questions than any of them needed to, and they did it because they just believe in the power of passing on the knowledge.
Exactly. Somebody always gives you a hand up, and so when you made it, then, most of us like to give a hand back.
Absolutely. And I am happy that I have been, people have sought advice from me in magic and otherwise over the years, and it's an honor to be asked for advice, and I take that very seriously and try to really think hard and go the extra mile to pass on what I can, and it's kind of, it's wild because when I was a kid, like my mentors or my heroes or my very people who I idolized, and then you actually get to become peers with them, which is very surreal. And the same thing happens now for me, is that people who I've, whippersnappers who I've, shared advice with are now like the masters of their domain, and we become peers and equals. So it's some people like to hold on to their knowledge because they feel like they are creating their own competition. And I feel like that's just it's kind of a dead-end mindset. I think, you might achieve your success, but man, without sharing and exchanging and, leading the way, I think you are missing out on one of the big joys of success.
Well, I agree, and I think it's too small of a world and an industry to really do that. Just such a thing as karma.
Exactly.
But I understand.
I was gonna say, that said, you can't. Obviously, there's not enough hours in the day to become an advisor to everybody and to be a quality mentor to everybody. So there is that interesting choice you make in discerning the people who really vibe with you and who actually want this information for the right reasons. And it's kind of it's lovely passing it on to people who you really feel like will utilize it best
and who really merit your attention and your time. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So that's great. Now, I understand, Justin, that you're currently on a tour called Fake Believe. What a great title. What is it, and how's it going so far? And do you have a particular story to share about it with our listeners?
It is going well. Fake Believe is the name of my current tour, which is mostly comedy clubs and theaters. And, as I tour, I do, I kind of do a half comedy, half magic show. Mm-hmm. So I'm able to play venues where comedians play, and I'm able to do theaters and whatnot. We got a chance to work together at the Polestar Awards. And the tour basically is, kind of my best of repertoire at any given moment. I tend to kind of get bored after about a year of doing any particular bit or routine. So the show's kind of always recycling and freshening itself up. And this particular tour, the title Fake Believe, I think is just a riff on everyone's obsession with calling everything fake lately.
Right.
And magic has been called fake for a long time. I guess it is fake by definition, in that I don't have real powers, but fake is such kind of like a lame label to put on anything. It just kind of sucks the fun out of anything. So I felt like might as well embrace that.
I love it. And after all, magic is about the suspension of belief, right?
Exactly. So it's like you can take fake and make it a beautiful thing. So Fake Believe, my job is to make people believe things that aren't real, and with knowledge of it not being real, and still enjoy it for wonder's sake.
Well, it's kind of like The Onion, right? Kind of like The Onion in news form.
Exactly. You gotta exactly.
Yeah.
So I've been actually on a hiatus from touring for several months because I've been working on a new TV series, which I'm sure I'll tell you more about in this conversation. But I'm getting ready to head back out on the road in December, and it's wild because performing and comedy and magic is one of those things that if you haven't been on stage for like a week, you fear you forgot how to do it. So hopefully I will have not forgotten.
I'm not worried about that for you, Justin, but I do love the approach of keeping it fresh and dynamic, almost like what's happening in the world. And frankly, people that follow you are always going to have a new experience, everywhere they go, because you're just going to keep, changing it up. That's the way to do it.
Exactly. And magic tends to have this reputation of, magicians for years kind of develop their act and then do that act forever, and that's great to hone something to perfection. But I tend to just kind of get a little bored with it. And I think that comes across when you're doing something that you're on autopilot for. Like, I really want to have things that evolve and change, and I want people to come back to the show and see something new
and you
a
want
year
to have
later. So
you want to be enjoying yourself at the same time.
Precisely.
So very good. Well, let's talk about Sleight of Mouth, your Comedy Central special. Rumor has it you performed it for a very unique audience. Tell us about that.
Well, there was one particular unique audience in the segment where I went and did magic for high people at a pot store with Doug Benson as kind of my comic sidekick. And yeah, doing magic for people who are super high is easy, like you would think. They're sometimes easy to impress, but honestly, more than that, it was a chance to show that, like, in that particular bit, the viewers get to see how all the tricks work. And it's not that the people are high that is why they're easy to fool. It's just that magic is about perspective, and it's about how you're looking, where you're looking.
Right.
And, the smarter, most sober, most attentive, perceptive people are just as easy to fool as people who are stoned. And I think that was kind of like the fun little message of that bit.
Well, when this goes way in the Wayback Machine, even really before my time, your time, Candid Camera, remember that? Where
yeah,
the whole point of that show was that regular people could get fooled very easily.
Exactly.
And it's kind of funny. I think there's room for something like that to come back. And actually, you're kind of doing a twist on that, even with Sleight of Mouth.
Well, and it's a chance to see how, Candid Camera in particular, how real people react in real situations. Like, definitely how easy they are to fool, but also just, like, putting people in a situation that is extraordinary and seeing how a human being takes it. And I think that's interesting for us to see because we're so used to just going through the ropes all the time. To see somebody actually be in an extraordinary situation and have to, react to something that's never happened before, it is a study in life.
Well, that's got to be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
But, I want to segue to your past temporarily, which is that for several years you were the host of Cupcake Wars on the Food Network. And frankly, I think that's how millions of people really started to get exposed to you and building your brand out to a much broader audience. And so I'm guessing Mark Summers played a role in that, given how entrenched he is.
Yeah, it actually just happened by happenstance. It happened by happenstance in that we didn't become super close until I think after Cupcake Wars was already on the air, and I think that might have been what made him take notice of me, and then also say, "Wait, is that also the magic guy?" And he kind of knew me from both, so we became bonded that way. I actually used to host or sidekick for Rachel Ray on her daytime talk show. So that was oddly food related. So none of these things directly correlated in, but it was maybe a perfect storm of, just little seeds planted along the way. I became the cupcake guy, obviously, and we did 9 seasons over the course of 5 years. I ate a lot of cupcakes.
How many do you think you ate during that 5 years?
I did the math. It's 13 an episode times 119 episodes, so that's 1,547 cupcakes. So
something tells me you probably don't eat cupcakes anymore.
I don't chase them down. I'll tell you that.
Do people still stop you on the street and say, "Hey, there's that cupcake guy"?
All the time.
Yeah.
I almost take it for granted. If they're if I can tell if someone's looking at me like they know me. I can tell that it's from Cupcake Wars, not from Magic. Because if they know, I'm the magician guy, then they don't stare for a long time. But there's something about hosting a show on the Food Network that makes everyone think that they went to high school with you, they knew you from something, you're their friend.
You were in their living room all the time.
You're just in their living room. You're not so in their face, but you're in their face enough to know that they know you. They just don't know your voice
and the whole thing. So was there any negative consequence of being in that role for so long? From a typecast standpoint or anything like that?
One thing would just be, obviously, hosting a cupcake show was a random tangent on the career path of being a, performer, as a magician, comedian. And that's kind of what you want people to know you for, because that's how you spend 24 hours of your day. When I'm doing Cupcake Wars, it would maybe take 1 month of the year, and the other 11 months I'm out touring on the road. So it is weird when someone only knows you from this tiny little part of your life versus what you really identify as.
Right.
But that's gradually changed. So if anything, that was something to just educate people about. But I think if they at least knew who you were kind of on their radar for something, that was better than nothing. So I wouldn't say it was a negative thing. And they kind of it's a lateral move in that, people still want to come see shows, whether or not they knew I did magic before that anyway. So it's a good thing overall. The thousands of cupcakes, not as good. But.
Well, but the good news is you are the atypical Renaissance guy who can, slice and dice and wear multiple hats in your career. So while that's not your primary role in life is to be a TV show host, you've done that. So who knows? There may be another opportunity for
Exactly. Listen, I made a living with magic and cupcakes. I mean, I'm like a unicorn.
That's going to wind up on the tombstone. And cupcakes.
Exactly.
Well, Justin, tell us what it was like to perform for the Obamas at the White House back in 2011, and I'm curious which one of them laughed the most.
Man, that was a surreal gig. It was for the Halloween party, and I got to do a 40-minute set right in the East Room for the whole family and all their friends and family and military families. Super, super surreal to have the Obama family 2 tables back and have their full attention. They all laugh. I mean, it was a fantastic crowd. The president would kind of like heckle a little bit just to ruffle my feathers in a cool way, like kind of like, kid, you know, how do you do that? Kids, come on, that's impossible. What's going on? What's up this sleeve? So I found that to be lovely and refreshing, and just meeting them. You know, I was a big fan of his work, and to get a chance to show him my work and show him, you know, do magic in such a historic place was so surreal and trippy. I don't think I've ever been more nervous or just, excited and numb about any experience as I was for that one.
Well, I'll tell you, they seem so down to earth, like you could invite them over, you know, for a meal at the house, you know?
Yes. Exactly.
I wonder if that's how they are now, you know?
They're just easy to, some people are just kind of easy to be around, and they make you feel less nervous in the whole experience.
Yeah, because if it was like the Queen of England, it might be a totally different experience.
Who knows? She could be warm. She could be a heckler. I'm sure she'd heckle a little bit.
She might be politer about it, but she could.
Yeah.
She could be one.
But yeah, maybe it'd be a little more of a stiff interaction.
That's what I'm worried about. Yeah. But tell us how you define magic and what you find so compelling about it, that you've turned it into your life's work.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I mean, magic, you know, aside from magic being what we all, or what, you know, many people think of when you say the word magic, like in essence, magic is that moment when something defies explanation, you know, when you do something or experience something that is impossible. It's like that moment of wonder. And our childhood is always full of those moments just in real life, you know, as you learn about the world and things around the house and like rain and snow and all that stuff, and animals, you know, like it's that childlike wonder where you know, anything is possible. And magic is basically making people feel like a kid again. So it's making you experience that moment that you don't get as often. And I think it's a necessary human experience that when our noses are stuck in our phones and we've seen so much, like we're so hard to impress these days, that magic, I feel like, is a very important escape.
I think you're right, and I think people need to lighten up more and be more in childlike wonder from time to time.
It's funny. Some people watch magic and get frustrated and upset about it, and other people just like, I just love it. I don't want to know. I don't even want to try to figure it out, you know. And it's an interesting litmus test for just different personality types of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, you've talked to Esquire before about demolishing the myths and stereotypes about magicians. Which do you think is the most pervasive of these myths and stereotypes, and how would you challenge that?
You know, I think one myth is just there's a connotation of anything that is kind of with the more jaded generation of people. It's just that, like, oh, magic's not cool, or I've seen magic, or I know what magic is. I mean, maybe that's the greatest myth, is that people think that people who maybe have seen a magician or seen magic on TV even know what magic's potential is. You know, like, I feel like everyone can speak, I'm sure, to the power of music or the power of dance, you know, or music. I've heard so much music, but there's so much that I haven't heard, you know. And magic, I feel like, is one of those things that people just don't really appreciate the depth to it as an art form, and the power of things that can be done with it. And probably just because there's so much more that people haven't done with magic that gradually is kind of coming out. So I think it's fun to let people know that, you know, magic is this awesome art form that can be edgy, or can be philosophical, or can be a metaphor for, you know, just so many different messages. And it's fun to reintroduce the concept to people.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And I know you've also said that Google is the enemy of magic. What did you mean when you said that?
Yeah, well, it kind of speaks to the same thing, in that, Google is there to help us not to always know the answer, to prevent us from ever not knowing something. So magic is one of those things that, you kind of don't know. So Google reminds people, I think, of the idea. It's just that culture of spoilers. It's the culture of YouTube comments that kind of want to prove that they saw the trick or they know how the trick works. And oftentimes they don't. But just the idea that people need to brag or make it a point to say that they know. They're not fooled.
Or be a killjoy.
Exactly. And Google is kind of just the easy target metaphor for that. I think it's more fun to not know. And these days, you hear a song or someone asks you a question and you're able to know the answer instantly thanks to these computers in our pockets. So it's just a reminder that you don't always need to know. Exactly.
And I'm totally with you on that. We need a little bit of mystique and magic in our lives that we just don't know. We need that as human beings.
Exactly.
Now, what role, if any, do you think, Justin, comedy has in raising awareness of social and global issues, if only to make fun of them?
Sure. I mean, to make fun of them, but also I feel like, sometimes these social and global issues are really serious and, not funny and kind of depressing. And I think that's why it's easier for us to be like, oh, man, I'm getting sad thinking about all the stuff that's wrong in the world, so I'm just going to maybe not think about it. And that prevents you from actually taking action. So comedy is a way to remind you that this thing exists or that there's a problem here, but do it in a means that makes you also laugh. And therefore, I think leaves you open to, facilitating change or doing something positive to help it. And I think, comedy is that spoonful of sugar.
I think a great example of that was the years that comic relief was going on with Robin and Whoopi and Billy.
Mm-hmm.
They had
and just look at shows, Daily Show, John Oliver, all these comedy news shows. These days, the news is really bums you out and depressing. So if you can just find a way to laugh about it while also figuring out what you can do about it, it's powerful.
And I think that's why and how late night exists.
Exactly. To literally help you sleep at night.
But also to take some of the pressure away.
Exactly.
And therefore be able to sleep at night.
Right.
Now, I understand you actually studied journalism at university, Justin. Can you tell us about that career shift? What was it, a drastic change or more of a natural evolution into what you finally wound up doing?
Well, I've been doing magic since I was 12 or 13 and then did magic throughout college and did birthday parties on the weekends to pay for college. And obviously the parents always want you to go to college and have a career to fall back on should this magic thing not work out. It does seem like a sensible idea. It's hard to argue with that if I can also do magic at the same time. So journalism always really just appealed to me, being a fan of, America's great broadcasters and newsmen and women. It's just a way to really deliver information for good. And journalism, I don't think it's been that much of a career shift as much as it is about an evolution that also as a host I think really comes to play.
Well, I think it comes to play even in your work with with fake belief. Right?
Exactly. Well, I'm right. Fake news, fake magic is fake. It's all intertwined. But yeah, being able to deliver a message and convey information to an audience in as few words as possible is useful on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you see yourself ever having a residency in Vegas for many years? Do you see that as being a part of a destination of your career path? Or?
Yeah, maybe down the line. I don't get excited about the idea of living in Vegas. I don't think it's for me. But potentially, doing runs or spurts in Vegas in a place where people are craving entertainment every night is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, plenty of musicians do week-long residencies or even a couple months at a go.
I mean, you have to be, Britney Spears level, Garth Brooks, Celine Dion level. That is famous and successful as it gets, but they do have a great deal. It's a pretty cool run.
Yeah. So I was just curious about that. Well, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received that you'd like to pass on to our listeners today?
Oh, man. I would say the idea that it is a marathon, not a sprint, is kind of a cliche that for me really became apparent when, you have all these ups and downs and all these for me, kind of gigs or bookings or shows where you're like, oh, this is going to be the tipping point. This could be the one, like these make or break things. And it leads to a lot of disappointment because you end up having to go through a lot of no's till you get those yeses. And the idea, I had a buddy once tell me that you don't need to stress out about any one thing being like a make or break. It's all a part of your body of work. If it goes well, it could lead to great things. But if it doesn't go well, like, people forget about it. You'll learn something out of it. So it's like you might as well just do good stuff consistently. You're building a body of work. Nothing is so precious. And that's really helped me, I think, prevent micromanaging or obsessive overthinking and second guessing,
Kind of keeping the long view in mind.
Exactly.
But as we're seeing with various people going down in Hollywood right now, you do have to be mindful for the long haul about your reputation and your brand.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really all that's so sad that people would make such poor judgments in their private lives that it would throw everything away. It's, that's.
I think the fallout from that is everybody else being mindful about, that could happen. So you should just
as they should be. Like little poor judgment can ruin everything. And
exactly right. Yeah.
It does take a lifetime to build a career and a body of work, and it can be pulled out from you in a moment's notice. So it's
with one foolish move. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, before we wrap up our chat, I like to ask, save this question for last. It's a question I ask all my guests, and that's basically what comes next in terms of maybe there's a project or collaboration that you haven't even started yet, but you dream about creating as part of your body of work.
Well, I just actually finished shooting my new series for Netflix, and it's a magic documentary series called Magic for Humans with Justin Willman. And it's a six half-hour episode show that I've kind of been dreaming about and working at for the past several years. And we're editing as we speak, and I'm very excited to share that. And then just excited to get back out there and tour again and do the live show every night and hopefully remember how to do tricks.
I'm not worried about that for you. But you do have a lot of interesting projects that you're juggling, and I use that word deliberately.
Yes.
And that's a really good thing.
Often, literally, yes.
Well, where can our listeners go to learn more and connect with you, Justin, if they want to stay abreast of it?
Sure. My website is justinwillman.com, WILLMAN. And then I'm on Twitter at Justin_Willman and Instagram at Justin Willman. And come see a show or watch a show on TV, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's sure been a pleasure having this time with you. I want to thank you for making the time. And,
my pleasure.
I wish you continued success across the board with all these fabulous projects.
Thank you. Like we said, it's you're just chugging away building this body of work, and
that's it.
Hopefully people like it. But if they don't, there's always another thing.
There's plenty of people in the world that will love your work, no doubt about it. But exactly. I do look forward to when our paths will cross again at some point too, Justin. So until then, continued success, and I want to thank our listeners, as always, for joining us each week, and we'll hear you all again on the next edition of All Access Radio. Good night, everybody.